Welcome and to another Wife University episode. This is Herman Franck, attorney author. I was just in the middle of a session about temptation. Unfortunately, I got a phone call, and when I get a phone call on my lovely phone recording system, it shuts it off. So this was an unintentional interruption of that session. So let me just continue with where I was about temptation and the related subject that I'm coming up with, which is called reverse temptation. So let me go back to right where I was. My ex-wife and I were in marriage counseling sessions, resulting from her decision to succumb to a temptation. And we were going through a series of 8 sessions, and really what came out of that was that she just didn't want me, and I didn't want someone who didn't want me. That was kind of the simple conclusion of all that. And I remember I think I said this elsewhere, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but the therapist got so frustrated with us, she finally fired us and said, you know what, I don't want to see you guys again. And it was sort of like, you need like intensive therapy sessions almost like every day. And my attitude is, you know what, if in order to be together with somebody, if you have to see a psychologist like 5 days a week, then this is not right. You should want your wife, and your wife should want you without the intervention of a psychologist. To me, a therapist is there to help with issues and problems that come up. But if it gets down to the point where I don't want you, you don't want me, well, to me, this is the good of temptation, because it brought us to that reality. It got us to the point where we said, you know what, we aren't right for each other. And I continue to say that, and this is one of the points of Wife University, it's like, for every woman who's a terrible wife, inside that same woman is the potential of a great and wonderful wife if she was just with another man, a man that she truly loved and adored. And of course, the same with a husband. If we're with a woman we don't love and we don't like, we're going to be terrible husbands. And if we are really into you and think you're the greatest woman in the world, blah, 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 we're going to be like the greatest husbands ever. And part of the good thing about temptation is it may end that what it may, let me say it this way. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it in a nice, clean way. Temptation may end that which should be ended. Let me say it one more time. Temptation may end that which should be ended. Which brings me to my next subject, which is called reverse temptation. And you may wonder, well, what the heck could that be? And let me begin by announcing, if you haven't figured it out already, I tend to think in a kind of backwards way, like whatever is what you might call a normal way of looking at things, I always end up looking at it in a reverse way. For example, most people, if you talk to them, would tell you right away that temptation is terrible, evil, it's the worst thing ever, and no one should ever succumb to it. And if you see it, you should run, kind of thing. And anybody that does succumb to it is an evil, terrible, bad person, and they should lay their head low and walk around with a solemn glance at the ground and never even speak to anyone for the rest of their lives. There's kind of it's a social custom, it's a taboo, it's just something everybody seems to think is the right way. Well, I'm here to say bull to all that. To me, that's a bunch of nonsense. I think temptation is out there because Mother Nature wants us to have it, and there's a good reason for it, and it produces things like a gigantic wake-up call in a marriage where either you guys wake up to all these problems. See, there's another way this could have gone with my wife and I. She could have gone, oh, I didn't know all my insults bothered you so much. That's why you're cold. And I could have said, I already knew she wanted another man because I didn't want her anymore. I didn't want to sleep with her. I didn't want to touch her. I didn't want to talk to her. I'm just like, get away from me, And, we both could have come to grips with that. She could have come to grips with her insistence on insulting me, and I could have given her another chance. And let me tell you, I totally would have. If she had told me, okay, I get it. I'm so sorry for all the terrible things I said to you. and I'm going to make up for it. I'm going to become like this really cool, sexy wife to you. And for every time I insult you or put you down, I am going to suck your cock 4 times. And I'm going to make up for it. Well, hey, I would have been all yours. You know, I would have been like, honey, you go. So if she would come to grips with the kind of bitch gene that women have, I remember the pastor of this church told me, quote, that's what women do. And I want to say to women who just want to do that, well, guess what men do? We say bye. Okay, women bitch, we say bye. And if you don't want us to say bye, then stop your bitching. And I don't, you know, it's like I don't respect it. I just think it's bullshit that women do that. They just drive a man down. And most men that leave, they leave because of not what they see, but what they hear. And that's 100% of how it went with my ex and I. I was just like, God, I'm sick of you. And when you add into that the humiliation of an affair, I remember the way I explained it to the therapist was like, before the boyfriend, I was willing to put up with her shit. After the boyfriend, I'm like, forget it. I'm not willing to put up with that crap. And I just wasn't. I'm just like, honey, I am not going to listen to you. I'm getting a new girl. She called it cheating. I was succumbing to temptation. I'm like, honey, I got news for you. I'm moving on. This isn't cheating. This is me getting a new woman. And I'm finding a new girl, and trust me, I will find one. You know, single, white, blue-eyed attorney seeks hot Asian girl. Gee, you think that's going to work? Well, yeah, hello. And she, for some reason, didn't think it would work, but then I started to connect up, and, you know, she just went kind of crazy with it. But it's like, honey, this isn't about me being tempted. This is about me moving on. So here is what I want to call, let me now describe to you what I mean by reverse temptation. Reverse temptation goes like this. It is when you are tempted to stay in a marriage that you should not stay in. Okay, so let me say it again. Reverse temptation is where you are tempted to stay in a marriage you should not stay in. Example, let me give you one right away. The easiest one that comes to mind is actually my ex-wife's parents. And very interesting people. I lived with them for about 4 months, mainland China, Shenzhen. Lived in their house, which was an experience because it was like a real Chinese house below, you know, with the toilet that you kind of squat in, and oh God, and it was very real, let me tell you. And the neighbors were very real. It was not the Hyatt, let me tell you. No elevator, walking upstairs, hotter than hell. One room had air conditioning, and that was my room, thank God. But let me tell you something that happened. They're in their 70s. Her father is an architect, very nicely educated man, super smart. Her mom is super smart. They're both Olympians, track stars, and they've got a physical thing going on and a brainy thing going on. So they're really like what you would call A-list people. And they have been in a kind of ice age in their marriage, you know, for like 4 decades now. This goes like back a long time ago. He was a top-level architect and what was considered the CEO of a Chinese government-owned, of course, construction company that made super large projects. And when I say super large, he would have like 10,000 people on the project, and he would be in charge of the whole deal. It's kind of like building the pyramids or something. Well, he would be going to these different locations that could be very far from where they lived. She's from, my wife was born in Guangzhou, but then they later moved to Shenzhen. But his project could have been out in Chengdu or Nanning or Nanjing or, you know, Chongqing or Changsha, Hunan, who knows where. But in other words, he would be gone. Well, while he was gone, guess what? He succumbed to a temptation. Uh-oh. And he's such a good, honest guy that when he came home, now he could have just shut up about it, but no, he has to do the right thing, and he told his wife about it. And of course, she, being the ice-cold bitch that my wife is, thank you for that genetic passing down, she just went into a tizzy over it and became a cold block to him in a way that few actresses could ever match if you paid them $1 million. I mean, she is like the perfect ice queen. This woman doesn't look at him, won't speak with him, won't touch him, forget about that. You know, and they've been living together in this little crappy ass house for like, 4 decades. To give you a proper perspective of how this thing worked, it's like they were together before the time of communism, living in a noble lifestyle. Her father was a doctor. They had a large house in Guangzhou. Then Mao took over and put into place the communist system. The beautiful home they had was expropriated. They were then taken away, put into prison with virtually all other noble people, then released from prison, and whereby the communist government saw fit to appoint him as CEO of this gigantic construction entity, where he continued as an architect. Now, you would think that after all that, she might put it behind him, but no. Okay, the communist takeover, the loss of the family home, the imprisonment, coming out of prison, and they finally get back together. She looks at him, and the first thing she says is, "Don't touch me." And it's remarkable how a woman could remain that unforgiving, okay? But that's what she does, okay? Whatever. And, of course, they, in the Chinese way, they would never, go see a therapist where a therapist would tell her, honey, it's been 40 years. Why don't you get over it? Whatever. And, of course, he said, I'm sorry, like 11 billion times, but it doesn't matter. So here's what's gone on in his life. He's with a woman who's actually a good woman. I mean, she's a good, solid lady. She's super bright, kind of a PhD kind of level brain. She's as I say, she's an Olympian. I mean, this woman is a good woman. Okay. She, by the way, her kind of interesting. Her family came from Shanghai, and there was some incident involving her grandmother, where her grandmother had some kind of affair with a British guy. So my wife's grandmother was half British. Her mom was a quarter, and that makes her like a 16th or whatever. So there's a little British blood in there. And so there was a whole nother temptation story there. These temptation stories go on forever. I mean, my goodness, they're everywhere. So anyway, here's what happens, okay? 40 odd some years later, she's still an ice queen to him. So what goes on here, all right? He now is stuck in this terrible marriage. This is the reverse temptation. What he ought to do is dump this woman. He should have done it 40 years ago. The temptation wasn't the evil thing. To me, the evil thing was going back to the wife and staying with a cold, insulting bitch for 40 years. Look, people, you got to live once. I mean, let's forget about past lives. Let's forgive about future lives. Let's forgive about all concepts. Forget about everything. Like we go to heaven, we go to hell, we go here, we go there. Our souls travel up to a gigantic plasma star and reunite, and then are emitted back down to earth into another human where we go on and live again. For the time being, let's just toss all those interesting theories about what the heck happens to us when we die. And why don't we just go with the notion that you only live once, okay? Do not spend 40 years in a terrible marriage. I'm just totally against that. I mean, I cannot even begin to say how this beautiful man, who I respect him, he's a great guy, he's brilliant, he went to like the MIT of China, has a top architecture degree, he's an Olympian, he's extremely handsome, and I owe my wife's good looks to him, thank you, and I owe her bitch to his wife. It's like, why do that? There's this, what I call reverse temptation to stay in a god-awful marriage where he is not being a good husband and she is not being a good wife. And if you would just split them apart, let's put her in Guangzhou and him in Shenzhen, let him hook up with a new woman, let her hook up with a new man, guess what? She would become a good wife. He would become a good husband. And they would all live happily and separately forever. Okay, that's my thesis. So reverse temptation is this oddity of hanging on to marriage based on some kind of social culture, custom, practice, whatever you want to call it, where the marriage is seen as almighty and you just can't end it. And so you stay in it, and you stay in it forever, and you're miserable, and you're terrible, and you're bad at it. You're not good. I mean, when you're stuck in something, you're not good at it. You're not going to look at some wife you hate and say, hi, honey, and she's not going to look at some husband she hates and say, hi, honey. They're not even trying, by the way. They don't even attempt to be like, oh, hi. No, they don't even do that, okay? At least with my ex, we actually say hi and stuff. I know, let me give you a great line I have. I tell her, hi, and her response to me is, no hi. It's an interesting statement. No hi. And it means like, no, you don't say hi to me. You know, you're a piece of garbage. You don't say hi to me. So I still say hi to her, you know, and I get no hi back, whatever. But I want to say that reverse temptation to me is sticking with a marriage that should end and moving on. And what you should do is move on to the temptation. Okay, that's what you should do. You like when that nice, handsome, extremely well-educated former Olympian sees a delicious, hot Chinese girl who says, God, you look good. He ought to go for it. I mean, why would you, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to come home to my ice-cold wife who hates my guts and thinks I'm a piece of garbage. I'm going to do that instead. And the thing that just boggles my mind is how many men do that and how many women do that. Like the same thing with a woman. You know, let's say your husband hates you. He puts you down. He insults you. He thinks you're stupid, ugly, fat, whatever. And he tells you what you're wearing sucks, how you smell sucks, your hair sucks, everything you do sucks. And you're just looking at him going, God, why, you know, what the hell? Why does this guy hate me so much? And then you meet a guy who says, honey, look at you. You're amazing. The way you speak, the things you say, and what you do, and oh my God, I love you. You're telling me you're supposed to say no to that and yes to your husband, and this is what we all agree is the right way? Well, let me tell you, that's reverse temptation, and I think it's bullshit. And I tell everyone, no. I'm the guy who says, go for the temptation. The temptation is there because it's kind of like you need to move on, okay? You need to get over your husband, or the husband needs to get over his wife and move on. I said in another session that there's a belief system where marriage is supposed to last forever. Well, let me just tell you, that's contrary to Mother Nature. And you can write it in a book, you can write it as a law, you can put it as a social custom, but guess who wins 100% of the time is Mother Nature, okay? You could write a book that says, floods are bad. Floods are evil. We are never going to have another flood again. Well, sorry to tell you, you're going to have another flood. It's going to happen because Mother Nature wants it to happen. Now, you could say, well, that's not right. Oh, okay. Well, since when did your opinion about the way Mother Nature is doing things really matter? Like, are you going to say, for example, Mount Everest really shouldn't be where it is. It's just not the right place for that mountain, okay? Or you could say the Gobi Desert isn't right either. It's dry, it's hot. Why do we have the desert there? That doesn't seem like a good idea. And why do we have camels with 2 humps? That seems like a bad idea. You could just go make all kinds of judgments about, like, trees shouldn't lose their leaves. And then you could say, well, look how messed up nature is. Some trees don't lose their leaves, and some do. Well, how stupid is that, right? And you could say that, you know, why are some trees always green? That doesn't make sense either. Why do some trees live longer than others? That doesn't make sense. Why are some birds flying like 1,000 miles away from their home every year and coming all the way back? That seems really stupid. And I would say you should not be in the business of judging Mother Nature. You ought to just back off of her. And instead, you should see her grace, her beauty, and her brilliance. And you should find your own method of living within her grace, her beauty, her brilliance. It's not up to you to try to change Mother Nature. It's up to you to change yourself so you can survive within Mother Nature. Or, if you don't, the consequence can be really quite high. I mean, you know, you can live a life of just filled with hate and bitterness. Strangulation, I guess, is a good word. I mean, you literally strangle yourself from life. In the case of my ex's parents, these two gifted people, big brain, Olympian body, everything, they have strangled their lives off. They've strangled themselves. And it's not because he's at fault for succumbing to temptation that he should have never succumbed to. Okay, that's not, to me, that's not the issue at all. The part he did was not marrying that girl. Imagine his life if he had said to his wife, instead of, honey, I did a bad thing, I had sex with a girl while I was gone. Imagine how his life would be different if he came home and said, honey, I want to let you know we're getting a divorce. I found a new woman. I'm in love. Goodbye. Okay? What would have happened then? Let's look at that. Let's look at that like parallel life or alternative life for him. So he ends up with this young, hot beauty who's totally into him, and they live together. But his life has been different, better. Oh, yeah. But what would nature, if you look at Mother Nature's dream and her strategy, what does she get out of it, right? Why would she want him to do that? Why would she want that temptation there? Why would she place a young, beautiful girl out there who looks at him and says, God, you're handsome, you're wonderful, and why would Mother Nature put into him the hormones and biochemistry where he says, I want you? And I mean, I want you in a big way, and I want you like now, and I want to like take off all your clothes, and I want to take off all my clothes, and I want to get on top of you, and I want to just do you. Why would Mother Nature do that, right? Because she's evil, terrible, wrong. Look at the following answers. Because Mother Nature is evil, terrible, wrong. Let's call that A. B. Because there really is such a thing called the devil, and it's not Mother Nature at all, but it's this all-powerful, red-suited, horned thing called devil, or Satan, or whatever you want to call him, and it's actually the devil just occupying these two people for like a blip of a moment and just forcing them into these terrible decisions. Okay, let's call that answer B. And then there's answer C. This is the other one, okay? Because nature wants this man and that woman to get together and have a baby. Okay, call that answer C. Now, why would nature not just want him to go back home to his wife and have a baby with his wife? Okay, why, what about that answer? Like, no, you're not supposed to do that. Just go home to your wife and do that. Well, I'll tell you why. Here's an answer. The answer lies in our genetic code and the general concept that as you mix up and variate genes in a species, you make the species stronger. Okay, here's what that means. And I think I've said this elsewhere. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. But I'll give the best example I can give of this. It's so simple. Is the example of the Siberian tiger, the largest tiger on Earth. It's a beautiful tiger. Looks like a Bengal. Lives throughout China. And it is near extinct. I think there's something like 600 of them left. Now, the problem with so few in numbers is that there's more and more interbreeding among them, so that siblings or cousins are mating. And the problem with that is their DNA, their genetic code, their systems in them are too similar. And as they are creating more and more similar offspring because of that, guess what's happening? The offspring are weaker and are actually falling prey to diseases which more variated Siberians would not fall prey to. And they're dying not because they're getting shot, but they're dying of disease. Well, an interesting solution that biologists have done on that is catching Siberians that, let's say, grow in or live in one part of like North China, and they're just they're changing their environment and bringing them to a totally different environment so that they can mate with total non-relatives, and those offspring are stronger and more fit to survive. So this gets back to Professor Charles Darwin and his basic concept of the survival of the fittest that nature has seen fit to put as a general goal variation in DNA. And to reach that goal, nature needs us not to just be with one person, but with other people. Mutations are too common, too frequent to be looked upon as random, bizarre events. They are there because they're supposed to be there. And we aren't supposed to say no. Ladies and gentlemen, we're supposed to say yes. You're supposed to take that temptation and marry her, or take that temptation and marry him. Then you're going to be like this really good wife because you look at the guy going, God, you're beautiful. Look at you. I love you. And he's looking at you saying the same thing. And you guys are going to be great husband and wives. And you're going to have babies. And those babies are going to fulfill the path, the strategy, the desire of Mother Nature. So I want to tell you with temptation, not only is it not bad to say yes, I want to say that it's bad to say no. And I'll give the example of my ex-wife's parents. Had he just married that lovely girl, and I have to tell you, I've never seen a photo of her, so I don't know what she looked like. But knowing this guy, she was hot. I'm just guessing, but who knows. Let me tell you what would have happened. They would have been married. It would have been a very good marriage because she's hot, he's hot, she likes him, he likes her. They would have had one or two more kids, and Mother Nature would have gotten exactly what she wants from all her species on Earth, which is offspring. This is the demand of Mother Nature. You have a baby. If you don't do that, you're going against nature. Now, I don't want to criticize women who don't have kids or men who don't have kids, but I will tell you, guess what? Mother Nature wanted you to do that. If you don't do it, you don't do it. Whatever. I won't talk you into it, but I'll tell you, you're going against the grain there. And he succumbed. See, he succumbed to the temptation, but it was only then and there. In other words, what he should have done is stayed with her. I think he should have dumped his wife and married that girl, and probably would have had a great life as a great husband with a great wife. I want to tell you that how critical it is. A man, I really believe this, can do a lot better in life if he's got a good wife who totally supports him. And the same with a wife. A wife can do a lot better in life if she's got a man who's totally there that totally supports her. If you have a situation where, before you go to work in the morning, your wife is already telling you you're a piece of garbage, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're never going to go anywhere, you're a loser, you'll never make it, everything you do will fail. Okay, honey, bye. And then, then you leave the front door, you close the door, you get in your car, you shake your head and you go, Jesus. And then you drive off to work and you're ready to slay a bunch of dragons, right? It's like, hello, that's not going to help you. It's not getting you anywhere. Reverse temptation is the odd decision to be tempted to stay in a marriage that should end instead of succumbing to the temptation that's outside of the marriage that you should say yes to. And I'm here to say yes. If your marriage is down in the dumps and your wife is just belittling you, or your husband is just belittling you, insulting you, and it's just a dried up deal. You're not making love anymore. You don't even want to be with him. He doesn't want to be with you. And it's just this negative thing. And then you find some really good somebody who happens to think you're the greatest person in the world, or second greatest, whatever. Don't say no. Don't do a reverse temptation. Say yes. Be happy. And then you can be a good wife. And then the man can be a good husband. Now, the alternative will be there's two alternatives there. You say yes, and you have this affair that turns into a marriage. That's one possibility, okay, where, you go with the guy and you find out he's really great, and you tell your husband, you know what, we're done. I got a new guy, and that's it. No negotiation. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Or the man does the same thing. He finds a new woman and just says, honey, I'm sorry to tell you, but I met this really cool girl, and I want her, I love her, and I'm going to marry her, and that's it. The other possibility is that, sorry, if I sound like I'm huffing and puffing, I just climbed up a small mountain. I'm out here on the river again, and there's a couple little mountains. I call them mountains. Anyone else would call them barely a hill, but for me, they're a mountain. The other possibility, though, is the affair does not work. The temptation ends. And there can be many reasons that happened, but let's suffice it to say it ends on its own. People start something and they end something. Well, you can use that as what therapists refer to as a wake-up call to your own relationship, and to look to see what your problems and issues are, and to see if you want to solve them. But I'll tell you what, if you've got if you have a spouse who just doesn't want to do anything, like, no, I don't like what you're doing, and I'm not going to like it, and I still don't like it, and I'm always not going to like it, and that's it, then, to me, it's like, don't continue with it. I also think if someone says the only way you can survive is if you see a therapist 5 days a week, I just don't think it's meant to be. And, it's like, hey, guess what? As a friend of mine told me, don't be sad about the 10 years you did not get with your wife. Be happy about the 10 years you did get. So it's like, don't be sad that your marriage didn't last 20 years. Be happy that it lasted 10. And, maybe that's the right thing, and, it's really 7, but we stay 3 years longer than we should. We have the 7-year itch. It should end at 7, but you hang in there for 3 more years because of this concept of reverse temptation. And then you finally throw in the towel and you say, that's it, we're done. And it's over, thank you, and you move on. And you get a new girl, she gets a new guy, and everybody goes forward. What's the matter with that? Where's that wrong? It's like, no, let's just sit and be strangled like my ex-wife's parents. God, I hate to say it, they're still together as we speak. My God, they're like 75, and you could look at them and say, oh, how wonderful, your marriage lasted 45 years? And it's like, yeah, 45 years of hell. Who needs it? This man could have had a gorgeous girl, could have had new kids. His wife, could have gotten a new guy, and who knows what would have happened with her. They could have had a completely different life. Who knows? Their kids, they may have had a kid that was in the Olympics or something. Instead, it's like everyone grew up in like this negative environment. And, it's not good. The kids are all negative. My ex is all negative, and her brother's like all negative. And I just got to think there's another way to do it. So I hope you aren't too upset at me for saying this, but to me, temptations are all part of the great plan of Mother Nature. And I'm here to tell you, if you say yes, it's okay. Thank you once again. This is attorney author Herman Franck with another session of Wife University, and I will be back soon with more.